Hey everyone, AMR back here again. As you may have heard in my previous videos, I was talking about how I would be having a playlist inside my channel that talks a little bit more about like mental health and weight loss and things of that nature. Let's go ahead and start with like my journey. Yeah, so I actually played Division I baseball at a school called Northern Illinois where I was a catcher. I was probably in one of the best shapes of my life, weighing in at like right around like 185, 190. I'm 6'1", so that's like a pretty healthy weight for someone who's putting on muscle. I wasn't like the thinnest, don't get me wrong, I was a catcher after all, but I was definitely like in an athletic body type shape. After my freshman year, I no longer decided to play baseball. My senior year in high school, I had torn my rotator cuff, labrum, and bicep tendon while pitching in like 45-degree weather. I grew up in northern Indiana, and early on in the baseball season, which starts in March up there, it's pretty cold still, especially if you live by Lake Michigan, which is where I was from. I was out there one day, I was pitching on the mound, something didn't feel right, and then it just felt like it hurt to throw the ball, kind of, but not like terrible pain. And then as I kept trying to, all right, I'm gonna give it some rest, and I'm gonna throw again, then it started to get worse and worse and worse. And then I got the terrible news that in April, so a couple months later, I had to go to the doctor for it, and I found out that I had all those injuries in my shoulder. The physical therapist's description of it was, it looked like a grenade went off in your shoulder. Awesome. So I had already signed to play baseball at that point. I basically had this thought in my mind that I'm going to do really well at Division I baseball. I'm going to go out, I'm going to show out, and I'll have the best chance to get drafted if I can. There's a lot of people, like, what they saw me play like at Northern Illinois was a very different baseball player than what I was when I was in high school. When I got to college, I was kind of living college lifestyle. I wasn't like practicing quite as hard as I should have been because I was injured, and I knew that the likelihood of me returning from an injury like that, which is typically 9 to 12 months, was unlikely that I was going to actually play that season. So I was kind of living up the best of freshman year in college. I didn't actually have surgery until June, so 3 months of my shoulder just being shredded. I got to walk at graduation with a sling on my arm. I had to spend the first month and a half in my parents' basement with a ice maker machine rotating on my shoulder. I still have 3 cuts in the front and then a cut in the back where they actually had to go in with some tools and attach some anchors to those tendons. I wasn't actually able to pick up a baseball again for 6 months. When I finally got the courage to throw the ball, I could typically only throw it about 5 yards. It is honestly a dream killer of an injury. It is something that very few people can have that surgery and then make a full recovery. I knew that my dreams and aspirations of baseball were kind of being flushed on the toilet. After redshirting my freshman season, I didn't really play. Like I said, I wasn't practicing super hard. I was known on the team as like a goofball type character. The coaches, they kind of saw me the same way, and they thought that I would no longer be a good fit for the team. They didn't see that my recovery was going well, which I didn't think so either. I was trying to transition into a closer type pitcher because it honestly was an easier role than the training that a catcher has to go through in college. For those of you that don't know, catchers get their shit rocked in college. They have to catch upwards of 150 bullpens throughout the regular season. During like the off season, you can catch up to like 500 bullpens. Bullpens are like a 60 to 80 pitch count per pitcher that you have to catch, and you typically do about 5 or 6 different pitchers who are all Division I caliber, throwing with movement, throwing like 0-2 balls where they're intentionally missing. You have to go down, you have to block those for 6 different guys, and you have probably 20 of those pitches that are going to be off seam, like off target. They're working out just like you are, so it's real taxing. Whereas pitching, I'd much rather be the guy throwing the rock at a guy than the guy taking the rock on the like literally the chest. I was trying to transition to that. Prior to my injury, I probably could have been more of a valid look as a pitcher for Division I, but post-injury, you know, a best case scenario, I would have been like a closer, because that's about all my arm could have probably taken. Towards the end of like my transition to pitching, I started to feel a little bit of like a tingle in my elbow. I got really scared that it might be like a UCL tear, also known as like Tommy John surgery, which is like the second worst in my opinion. A lot of people say it's the first for a pitcher. I've never actually had that diagnosed. I haven't checked it out or anything like that. But if I don't warm up and then I throw something, like I'm skipping rocks and stuff, I can sometimes still feel it. So I have to imagine my pitching career probably wouldn't have panned out either. Going in that lifestyle of I'm going to be an athlete forever. I'm going to, like, even if I go in the minor leagues, they make good money. I can do the minor leagues for, 10, 15 years. Then I could make a career out of that. At the worst case, I could get a decent education paid for where I could work some 9-to-5 job that I really wouldn't like if baseball didn't work out. Putting a lot of eggs into a basket. My dream was cut short after only 1 year in Division I baseball. I had to figure out what I was going to do with my life. I ended up changing my college major from business, which if you're an athlete in college, at least at the school I was at, they encourage people to be business majors because a lot of your teammates, when you're traveling on the road, we try to help one another out with studying and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of them are business majors. I didn't really have like the personality of business. I always thought that was like a high and dry, like cutthroat type business. And that's just not my personality. I do like to see the best in people and not like just use them for their money. I know I'm gonna get a lot of flack for that. Like,
I'm a business major and I don't do that.
That's totally fine. I get it. Like, don't worry about it. That's my perception on what business people are like, and it's probably not what your perception is, and you're entitled to it. No big deal. I ended up changing my major to a computer science major, where I finished out my college at a different college called Indiana University. As you can see behind me, I do have my degree on the wall along with a bottle cap with Indiana University on it. IU is a big party school as well, but for whatever reason, I think that 1 year of like living up the college life and seeing what it did to me, it really kind of kick-started my life after college thought process. After my junior year of college, I became a teaching assistant. I joined a academic club where I was able to teach how some of these business tools are being used, such as like Jira, GitHub. I was like the training lead per se of that club. As part of that, I had to help out other people who were attending Indiana University with understanding how to use these company-based applications for like college projects. It's really cool, and if you haven't looked at it, I guarantee that you won't be disappointed. Like, Indiana University's engineering, computing, and informatics school is fantastic. I definitely recommend to anyone who ever comes to my channel. I ended up gaining probably 110 pounds because I fell into like a vat of depression. I went from being like this athlete who was putting in those workouts constantly, and then I got told that, oh, you no longer have to do that anymore. Now you can literally just not do anything. You can continue to eat like you're an athlete. Big mistake. So that's what I did. I partied. I ate like shit. I didn't work out anymore because I was burned out from it, and I started to gain a lot of weight. I gained like 110 pounds, and I was up to 310 pounds when I went home for Christmas break, and I decided to weigh myself after my family was so nice to bring up my weight every single time that I came home for the holidays. It was really tough. It was like looking at yourself in the mirror, having a long look. And in my family, heart disease is pretty prevalent. You don't want to cut your life short. I don't want my life to end because I can't control what I'm putting in my body. And I still reward myself to this day with like pizza or burgers and stuff. But here's the kicker. When I found out how much I weighed, I was immediately motivated to not be the fat dad. I was going to put in those hours in the gym. I was going to learn to love to run. One of the hardest things to do in the world. Learning to love to run, it's insanity. When I was an athlete, we had to do sprints. I always associated running with discipline. I hated it. I hated the fact that whenever I had to do any type of running activity, it was because someone didn't do their job right, or we had to get in shape for the season and none of us wanted to do it, so they had to force us to do it.
I hated running.
I got into a rhythm where at 310 pounds, you are honestly embarrassed, if you're like me, to go into the gym. I had a girlfriend at the time. She was about 120 pounds. So she was pretty small, and she's walking around with this ogre of a guy who let himself go. go. It's really, really embarrassing, especially when you're going to a college gym where you see a lot of those frat guys who have nothing better to do but look at their biceps and
I would go party.
I hated it. I would wear a sweatshirt to a college gym at 310 pounds. I wore a sweatshirt and I would go on the treadmill for at least a half an hour. I would start off with 30 seconds at 6 speed. And guess what? I couldn't even do that. I had to go down to 15 seconds jogging, 5 minutes of walking, 15 seconds of jogging, 5 minutes of walking, and so on and so forth until about day 3 or 4, where then I was actually able to do the 30 seconds for 5 minutes. And then 30 seconds turned into a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. And then at that point, I am now closer to, like end of the month and a half after I started. I'm starting to see like a noticeable shift in my body because I no longer am just like eating pizza like crazy. I'm not viewing each meal as a challenge. I am viewing it as a way to, continue living your life. So I was limiting the amount of calories I was putting in, and I was putting in that work inside the gym. I wasn't necessarily like a calorie freak or anything like that. I wasn't like...
This little tiny ounce right here amounts to 27 calories. And if I eat this 3 times a day, then I'm actually going to live...
No, I never did that. Never. What I did is... I didn't eat more than 3 meals a day, and I didn't overeat. So I always left feeling like I'm no longer hungry, and then that's when I would stop eating. And then as the time went on, I noticed I would stop eating less and less and less. It was the simple little life changes that I decided to do that translated immensely. I started becoming way more involved in extracurriculars. I joined a men's volleyball league. I started going to what we call the WAC athletic complex, where students could go play basketball, play volleyball, play tennis or whatever. And so I'd go there and I'd play basketball pickup games. I was a Division I athlete, and I still had that, believe it or not. Like, I was still able to play sports at a high level. So it was kind of alarming to see your competition go like, who's this guy who's 280 pounds now who's trying to like run up and down the court with us? And truth be told, I really couldn't hang for much. I was doing a lot of cherry picking. So after like about 2 months, I was now able to run on the treadmill for, instead of minutes, miles. I was trying to get to 1.5 miles without stopping. My end goal in my mind was just be able to do a 5K. Just be able to do a 5K in under 30 minutes. At that point, then you can reassess this whole thing. You can figure out what you want to do. It took me probably 4 months to be able to get to that state where I was achieving that goal consistently. I actually hit the goal for the first time in just shy of 3 months. I remember that to this day. That was probably more of an accomplishment to me than ever signing to play Division I baseball. I felt so accomplished that I actually committed myself so hard to something that I was able to achieve a goal that I set where no one was telling me I had to achieve it except myself. You can't put into words like what type of inner discipline that takes. You are your motivator, you're your coach, you are your teammate, and ultimately you are your benefactor. You decide to slack off, your body's not going to be forgiving. If you decide to push yourself and also give yourself that rest time, then your body's really going to start to represent that even if you're overweight at that point, you're an in-shape overweight person. Let's fast forward down the road to about 8 or 9 months. I actually got down to 245 pounds. I felt on top of the world. I was still overweight, but I felt awesome. At that point, I could consistently run 4 miles without stopping, and get this, I was running at about a 9-minute pace. Not only had I accomplished the first goal of getting to 3 miles in under 30 minutes, which is a 10-minute pace per mile, I was now able to go even further, faster. Nothing is going to motivate someone more than seeing something like that happen to them. So now, let's go ahead and fast forward to about 1.5 years outside of the weight loss journey, okay? Now I am down to 200 pounds. I have lost up to this point 110 pounds. I am running at least 6 miles every single day, with possibly 1 to 2 rest days per 2 weeks. So that would be a little bit of an extreme. I definitely have an addictive personality, where a lot of people don't necessarily agree with the idea of an addictive personality. I think that I do have an addictive personality. Once I commit to something, it's really, really hard to like get me out of that state of mind. I think it's like the inner athletics in me. It happens with everything. It happened when I was drinking, which I actually have been 3.5 years sober. That'll be a future video as we go further down this weight loss and health playlist. But I also did it with sports. I did it with sports betting. I did it with weight loss. Now I'm doing it a lot with work. I have over time understood how my brain works. So I give myself those break times, and I make sure that I am never overworking my body. I'm constantly on the push to get the most out of my life, but I'm not gonna like kill myself in the process of doing it. After about 1 year, 9 months, I am down to 185 pounds. I have officially lost all the weight I put on. I am continuing to run my 6 miles every single day, at least. That next summer, which would have been June of 2020, I ran my first full marathon. I competed in the virtual marathon due to you know what, and virtual races were the only thing going on at that time. So I timed myself and I was 17 minutes off of qualifying for Boston. I finished with a time of 3 hours and 17 minutes, which is just shy of qualifying for a Boston Marathon. My end goal is to be able to qualify one day. Since like getting down to 185, I have put on probably like 10 or 15 pounds because I've realized that that's kind of like unhealthy. It sounds funny to say like that's like 200 pounds is like a healthy weight. But I mean, it really is. Like, I'm a software engineer. I like to play video games, and I also run that much. I think 200 is perfectly fine for my body type. Like, if I lift weights, I'm gonna put on that muscle really, really quickly. I've always been like on the heavier side, even if it doesn't look like it. So right now I'm like at 200 pounds. I go running every single day. There was a time where I did kind of reach a plateau with the running where it just seemed so repetitive. That like going on the treadmill for, get this, the longest I've done on a treadmill was 20 miles.
Yeah.
20 miles on a treadmill. Try that one. It gets really repetitive, really tedious. You wake up in the morning, you're like, God dang it, like I gotta go run on a treadmill for this long. So what I've decided to do is I take my dog, which I'll have another playlist inside of my channel here soon. It's gonna be all about her. She's a 4-year-old yellow lab named Winter, and she is just the most precious thing in the world. Her and I go running together. I've actually taken her on her farthest distance of 14 miles. For those of you dog lovers out there, listen, what we did was we went 7 miles to a lake, and she loves running, by the way. Don't get her wrong. It was like 45, 50 degrees outside. We ran to the lake. She went into the lake. She like swam around for a little bit. I let her rest, get her kind of bearings back. And then once I saw that like glow come back into her eyes, we started running, and about 3 miles in, you know, she's kind of like, we took breaks, you know. It was like an easy going 14. I wasn't like, I was like, let's go ahead and like ease ourselves into this. Going back on what we do today, I take her for a 2.75 mile run on my lunch break, and then I follow that up with a 4.25 mile run on the treadmill. That little break between outside and inside is just everything that you could imagine. It gives you the scenic routes, the hills, the change in alignment when you're running. It gives you like those little tiny muscles that aren't being worked out on a steady track on a treadmill. So like you get that added benefit, and then you get to go on a treadmill and you get to watch a YouTube video. Like when I was starting out with all my weight loss stuff, I would watch RLCS, which for those of you that don't know, it's a Rocket League Championship series, and just get yourself engulfed in some type of a series. Netflix Ozark is fantastic. I do a lot of movie reviews on this channel, TV show reviews, and so on. So if you're looking for suggestions and stuff, go ahead and comment those down below, by the way, with some of your favorite ones. So that way, if you happen to see this, you can look through everyone else's, and then we together start watching a series and, you know, like post our wins. You know, it's a really, really cool thing to get like involved in. What I do now is I watch a couple of these YouTubers. One of them is called like TD Barrett. He does some Madden videos where he challenges people. He's a big shit talker. I'm not like a huge fan of that type of his personality, but he's damn good at the game. So I watch those. I watch fantasy footballers when I like football season, because I like to get like others' perspectives on like how games are going to go that week, who I should and should not play, like what injuries are going on. And then I also have like a series of like funnier podcasts that I listen to. If you're familiar with the comedian Tom Segura, he has a podcast called Your Mom's House. Fantastic. I'd recommend it to anyone. It's very vulgar though, so warning, not safe for work for sure. It definitely is on the more explicit side, but just get involved in something bigger than yourself. Make it about you 100%. Be the most selfish that you can be when it comes to your overall fitness. Don't allow little things like, I have to go to the store, I have to go on a trip, I have to do all that. If you know that you have to do those things, you can also account for when you can make time for yourself. There are 24 hours in a day, and it takes at most 2 hours to work out. For those of you that are just starting out, like I said, I was only doing 30 minutes. 30 minutes! This video is 30 minutes long. You could have been watching this while on the treadmill, motivating yourself. Listen to that coach inside your head. You know, if you want me to be that guy, I can be that guy. It's just, there's nothing more rewarding. My words can only go so far, but you're the one that's got to put in those type of actions, you know? So that's my journey. You know, I'm continuing every single day to get better and better. My end goal is to be able to qualify for Boston, which if that were to happen, I for sure would be uploading a video. I'm probably going to start up a playlist at some point in the future, at least for now, planning for it, where I'm going to have like a GoPro, and it's going to be like race playlists. So I'll run these races, you know, the 5K, 10K, half marathon, full, and then ultras. It'll be like a GoPro version of me running through it. And I'll also get a GoPro for my dog. So whenever we do our running routes and stuff, you can get her perspective of her ears flopping around. If you haven't seen videos like that, I highly recommend like Yellow Lab runs with GoPro. It's super funny. Here on my channel, I'm trying to build a community of becoming self-aware of who you are as a person, what value you can contribute to the rest of the world, and just understanding that no one's gonna feel sorry for you, but everyone's going to admire you when you tell them your story. So keep that in mind. Use that as a motivation you need. If you like today's content, please feel free to like, subscribe, and comment down below. And I hope that we start something pretty special. All right, thanks so much. I'll catch you in the next one.